All right, now on to lab 4-4. We're going to start by going to Microsoft Excel and retrieving that Excel file we've used in a previous lab. So my Excel workbook is going to be called Excel Regression. Have that open. And we're going to want this transact data, which is my main file. So I'm going to drag this out here. Now I have to update. And this will take a while, so I'll be right back once it's already loaded. All right, the data has now loaded, so we can go back to sheet 1. We're going to want the column to contain Arkansas dummy, and we want the transaction amount to be the row. So here we have the sum of each of these, and it's not what we want. So we're going to have to go to analysis and deselect aggregate measures. And there it goes. I should update this to not be the sum. So what this is here is this is 0 and 1. And basically this is saying that this is not, these data points are not Arkansas. And these data points are from Arkansas. And so there's so many data points or transactions that it essentially makes a whole straight line. And same as here, but in a smaller scale. Right, and I think now we're gonna want to show the trend line. And so we're gonna go to analysis, trend lines, show trend lines. It should update pretty quickly. So here our line is telling us the regression. And it gives us a couple of statistics you can go off of at like the p-value. It is under 0.05. And so we know this statistic is statistically significant. It sounded kind of weird. Anyway, we know that this regression line is statistically significant because the p-value is below 0.05. And it also shows us kind of how they got this regression line, like the equation for the regression line, which would be that transaction amount equals 9.4436 times Arkansas dummy plus 18.2919. And so the next thing we want to do is grab online dummy and drop it off on the columns, and should load. And after that's done, we just have to add the Diller dummy as well to the columns. And same as before, this is just shows us 0 and 1 of not online and online transactions. And once this lasts, once the Diller dummy loads, it'll essentially be the same thing. Whereas 0 is our transactions without that didn't use the Diller's card, and 1 are transaction amounts that did use those credit cards. And so this p-value for online dummy is also below 0.05, and the same for the Dillard's dummy regression line. And so they're all three statistically significant. All right, so we have all three set up. The only thing is we can't combine these results, or for example, just take into consideration inside the regression of the Arkansas dummy and the online dummy, and not the Dillard's dummy, or just a different combination of two variables, whether it be online dummy and Dillard's dummy, or Arkansas dummy and online dummy. Yeah, so that's just one thing that's not, I guess, a con of Tableau. But moving on to the questions, which of these three variables has a noticeable trend as compared to the others, suggesting greater explanatory power? Looking at all three of these, I would say the online dummy has a noticeable trend compared to the others, because you can see the contrast between these two, and it also has a greater concentration within these lines and not as many outliers. And so I'd have to go with that one. Okay. Oh, no. Oh, okay. It just took off the sharing screen. Share. All right. Still recording, yes. So for question 2, let me try and not hit that again. All right. So question 2 says, which of these three variables best explains the average transaction amount? It gives us a hint to consider the R-squared in each of these, or the p-values among the three models. And so going off of the R-squared value, this one would be the highest, the online dummy. And I think this one, Dillard's, would be the lowest R-squared. And I know it's not always the case, but typically you want a higher R-squared value that provides more assurance to the regression. And so for that reason alone, I'd probably go with the online dummy, just because our p-values aren't too specific and they're all well below 0.05. I would also say this one, maybe just because it has a more of a concentration near the regression line. But it does have a few of these outliers, at least more than online dummy. Except for this one. But ultimately, I think I would probably go with online dummy, because a lot of these transaction points are closer to the regression line, and the regression, the R-squared value is the highest. All right. And so question 3 says, the coefficient on the Dillard dummy is negative here. What does that suggest? Is that consistent with the results of lab 3-5? And our coefficient for Dillard's dummy, hopefully it doesn't take too long to pop up, but it's still negative 2.39, which kind of suggests that the Dillard's, typically Dillard's transactions are $2 less than people who don't use the Dillard's credit card. And so that is why we have a negative 2.39. And that 3-5, ooh, what happened? Not sure what has happened. Okay. And so I think in lab 3-5, our the regression showed that our online dummy regression, our online dummy regression said that if online transactions were $12, about 12.93, I believe, uh, dollars higher than transactions that weren't online, and so it's pretty close there. But this one, I think, oh, that was a little different, so it's probably not, because I remember this one being 1 point something. Well, it did ask for Dillard, so at least Dillard is consistent with Lab 3-5. So yes, pause recording. All right, question 4 says, in the trend line, looking at the Arkansas dummy, what is the base level of transaction amount? The y-intercept before considering the Arkansas dummy. Okay, so if we go back and look here, we definitely have our equation for the line, regression line. And so just remembering going off of like middle school, high school, beginning of high school math, or yeah, it's just different math classes. The y-intercept would be the 18.2919, and then that's where the transaction amounts start and go up from there. That would be our y-intercept for the Arkansas. All right, so question 5 says, let's suppose we could capture the net worth of each Dillard's customer. Would you expect the net worth to have higher explanatory variables than either of the transactions took place in Arkansas, was an online purchase, or was paid using a Dillard's credit card? Why or why not? I don't know if capturing the customer's net worth would be too indicative of what we're trying to figure out. Just because like their net worth, of course, it tells us who has the most money, right? But there's also other things that go into buying stuff. So there has to be like a desire, need. You could just have people that have money but don't buy a lot of stuff, or don't buy a lot of stuff from Dillard's, and so it'd be kind of hard to go just off just net worth. But then again, these three, because these three aren't combined, I feel like it doesn't give us a lot of, I guess, things to go off of. I don't know. I would probably go with these data points right here, because then you could tell whether your sales are online or not online, Arkansas or not Arkansas. You could just, what I'm trying to say is you could look at what's falling behind and what's working, and work on what's falling behind, but also like focusing on what's working so that you can be profitable. But yeah, that is Labs 4-5.